How Brazil reached 3 World Cup finals in a row, with 3 coaches. Brazil is regarded by many as the greatest footballing nation, possessing a record 5 World Cups. Of course, their 5 victories were achieved at 1958, 1962, 1970, 1994, and 2002, all within the process of making legends, such as Pelé, Didi, Garrincha, and many others. But some would say their best spell was between 1994 and 2002, which they reached 3 consecutive World Cup finals. But there were 3 separate coaches that led them on these separate occasions: Carlos Alberto Parreira, Mario Zagallo, Luis Felipe Scolari. Carlos Alberto Parreira was the coach of the 1994 Brazil squad. He had actually already coached a Brazil squad on a previous occasion in 1983. And to this date, he holds the record for the manager with most World Cup appearances with 6. Doing all this by bringing 5 nations to the World Cup, those countries being Kuwait, UAE, Brazil, Saudi Arabia, and South Africa. So it was fair to say he had experience with the World Cup. Carlos Alberto Parreira had a fairly solid squad. They had players such as Romario, Cafu, and an extremely young Ronaldo Nazario. Brazil were placed in Group B at the 1994 USA World Cup. This was Brazil 1994 lineup. They played a 4-4-2 formation. Parreira made sure that full-backs would push forward to help with attack. The 2 central midfielders were given the responsibility to be extra defensive. Parreira claimed that he did not want to copy others and stick with the Brazilian ways, hence why he had a back 4, as Brazil essentially modernized the back 4. The first match was against Russia. Brazil were able to ease past Russia. Romario started his goal tally, netting a goal against Russia. Brazil then faced Cameroon. Brazil bewildered Cameroon in an emphatic fashion, winning by 3 goals. Romario carried over his brilliant form, and with Bebeto also getting on the score sheet. This established the threat that these Brazilian attackers posed. They then played Sweden. Brazil ended the group in a frustrating draw. But with Romario scoring in this match, meant that he was 3-3, and was undoubtedly the best player in the World Cup group stages so far. This is how Group B ended. Brazil were then up against the hosts USA in the round of 16. Brazil beat the hosts in a thriller, in which both sides had a sending off. They then played Netherlands in the quarters, in which many claim to be Brazil's first proper challenge of the World Cup so far, as the Netherlands had players such as Bergkamp, Koeman, Rijkaard, and others. Brazil just about took it in an intense 5-goal match, including Bebeto's iconic celebration. Brazil then faced up with Sweden yet again, but this time in the semi-finals. Brazil went on to win the game by a goal, with Romario sending them to the finals. Brazil faced Italy in the final. Many actually saw Italy go into the World Cup as favourites, as they had the likes of the then Ballon d'Or winner, Baggio, and had others such as Maldini. But Brazil were triumphant in a stalemate match in which they won on penalties. Brazil were eventually crowned champions securing their fourth World Cup. Notably, Romario was the integral player of their team, as he sealed the World Cup Golden Ball, capping off with 5 goals in the tournament. He also went on to win the FIFA Player of the Year. And if the Ballon d'Or at the time could be allocated to South Americans, he most definitely would have won that as well. Pereira was praised as he led Brazil to the World Cup. Many claim this side to be the best without the ball, and although initially criticized for having defensive central mind, that was indeed the tactic that made them champions. However, back at home in Brazil, they labeled the victory as boring, stating that it wasn't in the same league as their previous World Cup victories. But regardless, surely the Brazilians were pleased they won the World Cup after so long. After 3 long years of coaching Brazil, Pereira decided to step down and go into coaching in club football. Therefore, was named Valencia coach. This meant Brazil needed a new coach, so they decided to reappoint Mario Zagallo. Zagallo had previously led Brazil to the 1970 World Cup as the coach. He also won the World Cup as a player in 1958 and 1962. He was appointed in 1994 after the World Cup, meaning he had a lot of preparation for the 1998 World Cup. Just before the 1998 World Cup, Zagallo and Romario entered controversy. Romario faced injury ahead of the 1998 World Cup, meaning that Zagallo had to axe and replace him from the World Cup squad. This left Romario distraught and furious. So he therefore took a dig at Zagallo by putting Zagallo and Brazilian legend Zico's faces on toilet doors in Romario bar in Brazil. This therefore meant Zagallo would miss out on a crucial asset of Romario. But he still had players such as a seasoned Ronaldo Nazario, Cafu, Tafarel, and others. Brazil were placed in Group A at the 1998 World Cup in France. This is the Brazil 1998 World Cup lineup. They played a 4-2-2 formation. Once again, Zagallo instructed fullbacks to go forward, but this time they had the addition of Roberto Carlos, meaning their attacking prowess would be further effective. Zagallo ensures there was a vital partnership between attacking midfielders and fullbacks. This was to combine and create opportunities for the strikers. First up, they played Scotland. Brazil went on to win by 2-1. But to say the least, it was a disappointing result, considering the firepower Brazil had compared to Scotland. A narrow win seemed underwhelming. They then played Morocco. Brazil went on to humiliate them, with all their star players combining to put on a display, with R9 scoring an incredible goal, submitting his first goal of the tournament. Brazil's last match in the group was with Norway. Shockingly, Brazil went on to lose in a poor performance, which led them to just about clinching top of the group, which in this state was a disappointment, as the group was fairly simple. They played Chile in the round of 16. This saw Brazil ease past them, with an unstoppable force of Ronaldo Nazario scoring a brace and sending Brazil to the quarters. They then played a golden generation Denmark, but Brazil just saw past them in a tight match. 4 years later, they played Netherlands again, but this time in the semis. In a thrilling draw, Brazil just took it on penalties. Brazil reached another final, this time playing host France. This saw them match up with the likes of Zidane, the eventual Ballon d'Or winner. This match saw the best midfielder in the world take on the best striker in the world, who went on to win the World Cup Player of the Tournament. However, France humiliated Brazil with the worst goal deficit in a final since 1970. Brazil were hung out to dry and devastatingly disappointed. France were crowned World Cup champions. However, there are many conspiracies to why Brazil lost the final, and for why R9 did not play well in the final. Rumors have it that R9 had a seizure hours before the final, meaning he could not play to his best. Realistically, he should not have played at all, but he wanted to give it his all for his country. Others think the absence of Romario was also why, as Brazil could have had the best and most deadly attacking duo on World Cup history. But either way, the damage was done. When Brazil went back to Brazil, Zagallo and his entire coaching staff were dismissed. This was because they could not retain the World Cup, and because of the 3-0 humiliation in the final. Once again, meaning Brazil needed a new coach. Brazil had a few caretaker coaches until 2001, when they appointed Luis Felipe Scolari. Unlike the other managers, this was Scolari's first time in charge of Brazil. He also had much less time to prepare than the other managers, but he probably had the most star-studded squad, with players such as Ronaldo Nazario, Ronaldinho, Kaká, Roberto Carlos and others. So it was fair to say Brazil were favorites again. Brazil was placed in Group C at the 2002 World Cup. This was Brazil 2002 World Cup lineup. They played a 3-4-3 formation. Cafu and Roberto Carlos were played as wingbacks, as opposed to fullbacks, so that they could roam the flanks and essentially play as wingers. And they were able to form the best attacking trident the World Cup had ever seen. First up, they played Turkey. They just about beat Turkey in a difficult first match. They then played China. They beat China by 4 goals in a brilliant display. And to end off the group, they played Costa Rica. Brazil won in a 7-goal match and getting the better of their South American counterpart. This meant they had won every match in the group stage for the first time since 1990. In the round of 16, they played Belgium. They get past Belgium by 2 goals by both strikers. Brazil then faced England in the quarters. Brazil went on to win a narrow match, with Ronaldinho scoring one of the most iconic free kicks. They played Turkey again in the semis, once again through a tight match. Brazil were through to the final once again. In the final, Brazil played Germany. Germany had the player of the tournament as their goalkeeper, Oliver Kahn. Brazil went on to win, with Ronaldo Nazario scoring a brace. After 8 years, Brazil were champions again. Ronaldo Nazario had one of the best individual tournaments, netting 8 goals and grabbing the World Cup Golden Boot. Ronaldinho also was an integral part, as this World Cup established his illustrious career. Luis Felipe Scolari led Brazil to their record 5 World Cup. Luis Felipe Scolari's pragmatic and aggressive style was the philosophy that made Brazil champions. However, as soon as the World Cup was over, Scolari stepped down as his aim was to work in Europe. So once again Brazil had again the dilemma of needing a coach. So there you have it, that's how Brazil reached 3 World Cup final in a row, with 3 separate coaches.